I genuinely think this is the most we've matched, even past like the red.
Oh, we didn't even plan it.
Aww. Is it recording?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Through Her Eyes podcast. I am Olivia.
And I'm Malia.
And we're excited to talk to you about our new book, Through Her Eyes.
It comes out in 2 weeks, y'all.
2 weeks.
Woo!
If you haven't already, please, you could pre-order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or you could wait 2 weeks, but I don't recommend that. Just pre-order the book. We are so excited because also in 2 weeks, Malia graduates with her undergraduate, her bachelor's degree in creative writing with a minor in biblical studies and business. Business.
And I'm about to graduate from college. And then my mom is graduating with her master's
in entrepreneurship.
MBA in entrepreneurship.
It's an MBA.
At Belhaven, which is the school I go to. It's not just a master's. We're both graduating from the same school. It'll be the same ceremony, walking at the same time, which is so exciting.
So magical.
We're so close.
And then in Jackson later that day, we will do one of many book signings and book launch parties.
So if you're watching and you are in Jackson, all my college folks, after graduation, come by, and then we'll do some in Denver and just a bunch more. But those will be our launch parties the next couple of weeks.
So in this podcast, there are quite a few episodes. Go back and check them out. But we go through each chapter and just kind of do a quick run through. We don't even dive too deep into the specific content of the book, mainly the themes of the book. So today we're going to talk about faith.
Yeah, and if it isn't clear already, we are both Christian women. We're followers of Christ, and it's been a very big, important part of both of our lives for basically all of our lives. I mean, at least for me. And so our relationship with God and that journey and growing our relationship with Him has been a really interesting journey for both of us as we navigate life while also trying to learn more about Him and see how He guides us.
And it's also been interesting too to think about how we came up with the chapters for the book, and then even thinking about, I think there were 2 topics: Blackness, us being Black women, but also faith. That we know faith plays an integral part in all of parts of our life.
Yeah.
And so part of me at one point in time was like, do we get rid of the faith chapter?
Right. Yeah.
And make sure that faith is sprinkled in and intertwined within every single chapter.
Yeah.
And it is like, I feel like you can't talk about, or at least I can't talk about,
and all of our podcasts,
love
we've
and
brought it up.
Purpose without talking about faith. So we did keep it as a separate chapter.
Because I think it's so important to just harp on that experience, especially for people in our lives who don't know Christ or who are still wanting to know more. And so I think it's important to take the time to talk about like how we started our relationship and what that process looks like, and the nitty-gritty, because I think one of many stereotypes is that because you're Christian, everything's great and everything's fine. And so it's really not like that at all. And so I really enjoy talking with you about faith and all the hardships that we've dealt with while growing in our faith.
Right.
So maybe we start with Mom, when did you first get introduced to Christ, to Christianity? When did that relationship grow? If those were different points, like that whole, start for you.
So my childhood wasn't one where we went to church and where we were believers whatsoever. It actually was the opposite of that. And being born into and growing up into a family where the religion created was actually one that was formed by my dad, pulling parts from different religions and kind of creating his own. So it wasn't until a little bit later in childhood, I would say 12, 13 years old, when a neighbor, y'all, we were living in a hotel. Let me just be real. We were living in a hotel, and there was a family there that had, I think the dad was like traveling and had long stints in Denver, Lakewood at the time, like pretty long stints. And so they would come back reoccurring every so often to the same motel that we were in. And they started going to a church. And so they invited us to go. And I think the only reason, honestly, why my mom was like, sure, go ahead and go, was because we were homeschooled. So we sat at home all day. We weren't even really homeschooled. We were homeschooled by soap operas. So Guiding Light and Young and the Restless, like that, those were our babysitters.
Mm.
And this was an opportunity for us to get out of the house and do something and go somewhere and interact with other kids. And it also didn't require my mom to actually go and be there and do. So there was Green Gables. I don't know why that just popped into my head.
Whoa.
I haven't like thought about or heard that name in a really long time. But there was a church like up the street off of Kipling where we would go to the youth group. And so that was like the first thing. But again, it was just something to do.
Yeah.
And that was the first exposure. But that's when I first started reading the Bible and first started praying and also first like realizing that what I was growing up in is different than what most people know.
Yeah.
And then fast forward into my freshman year in high school, I started going to a lot of people. If you're from Denver, you've heard of Heritage Christian Center. So I started going there. And that is where the experience with the youth group changed my life. Like literally changed my life. Freshman, sophomore year, where I became so involved and so super close with people my age, some of which that I'm still in touch with. The youth pastors were integral in my development of my faith. And I remember just being there every day. Like I was able to catch the bus and get there. And especially over the summer, it's like something was happening every day. We would go to the park and we would minister. And I was part of the dance team. And it was a really, really great time. And it was also the first time that I experienced the presence of God in a way that was unexplainable, but also undeniable.
Yeah.
And I remember around that time, my prayers and my young angst, being 14, like we were talking about, like your perspective is your perspective. And so at 14, the angst and the sorrow and the heaviness I felt was the most angst, sorrow, and heaviness I'd ever felt. And so it did feel like the end of the world or the, whatever. But it was around my siblings and just the family dynamic we were having and going from a place of being the oldest of all of these kids in a household and working through that dynamic and just having siblings to my siblings moving and me being an only child in the house with my mom and how I felt God was so unfair to why leave me in this structure. I had a roof over my head, wasn't living in a hotel anymore. I was going to public school, making friends. I knew like my path had education in it and college, and I was at a church and I had these people that cared about me, and my siblings were gone and I didn't know exactly where they were did they have food and shelter and like I just didn't know. And so I felt like, God, why spare me from that? I want to be with them and I want to be in the struggle, whatever the struggle is. I want to be there with them. And who am I to be living this great life or this secure life? So that like really tormented me. And to the point of sophomore year, I just remember feeling like if I'm not going to be with my family, with my siblings, then I don't want to live.
Wow.
And the other dynamic of that being my dad and him not being around and feeling like that there were this life of promises that he made to us of being there, money, food, mansions, like just all of these things, and me being repeatedly just disappointed. And so one night I remember we were just it's crazy how on fire for God I was at 14 and 15, to where I would do anything and pray for anybody and go out on the street and minister to anybody and lay hands on people. But the young people in the youth group laid hands on me and just like prayed for my peace and healing and my heartbreak and depression. And I just remember like the power of God falling in such a way again that was like, wow, I can't, I will never forget this experience, and I will never be able to say this was just an act or coincidence or dramatics. Like I knew for real that it was for real.
That's so cool. Because we haven't really, I just realized while you were sharing that, we've never fully talked about how you came to Christ. Because for me, on the flip end, at that point, you had already been at my father's house. You were already very
Youth
integrated.
pastors.
Yeah, you were a youth pastor in your relationship. So that I was one of many, I feel like, that I know of that was raised in the church, as in just every Sunday we went to church. And that was routine. And I learned the Sunday school, and I went to VBS, and it was just all routine. I loved it, because who doesn't love VBS and Sunday school and the snacks and then the friends at Sunday school, and that's what we did on Sunday. So it was just kind of the thing. And even when you and Dad got divorced, Sunday, being at church on Sunday was still pretty much a thing. So
Yeah.
for the longest time, it was just routine for me. But then you and Dad divorcing was a lot, and the blended families was a lot. To add parents and to add siblings that aren't your original parents and siblings is something that is never easy. And then fast forward to middle school, I was bullied around end of elementary school into majority of middle school, and I guess to twist the knife harder, it was my friend group that was bullying me. It wasn't just this random kid in the class who
That's
was
what
the
movies
bully.
show. Like when you watch movies, it's like the random kid
It's the big bad bully
pushes you into the garbage or into the locker. But bullying is so much more intimate.
Yeah, it has to. Yeah, because the bullying that really scars you is the teasing and the belittling that they know your flaws and they tug at them
by people who you've not cared about.
Yeah. Versus just some random kid picking on me at the lockers or pushing me into a lockers. Ow, like it's a locker. Versus it was my friend group that would tease me. We talked about this in childhood of how I would dance when we were in PE and we were waiting to go for kickball, and I would dance to the music. And I would raise my hand in Sunday school every time, all the time. I always raise my hand. If we had a sub, I would ask if you're going to turn in our homework or if we should turn in our homework.
Oh, dang. If I were like another kid, I'd be like, Malia,
I got to an age where I understood that. In my freshman year of college, someone did that in one of my first classes. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? So I've understood how terrible that part was. But I would, by my close friends who knew my quirks and knew my silliness and all stuff, they would pick and tease and laugh at those parts of me, which in childhood we talked about how middle school just sucked the life out of me because it was my friends who loved me and in the same breath would tease me when I was acting weird or whatever. So during that time, that was really rough, and blended families were still a thing, but I was then allowed to go to youth group, because youth group at my dad's church was 6th grade and up. So it was hard to figure out a routine to go there since some weeks I was with you, but I would figure out a way to go to youth group, and that was really where my relationship with God started in terms of outside of Sunday school, inside of the Sunday routine, I purposely chose to go to youth group and learn about the word and make new friends within the church. Which was such a, like you said, like youth group truly saved my life. It was such a cool experience for middle school. It was my second home, to get away from the siblings and the mean girls and just all the things. But one of the biggest things that changed my perspective on God, which I don't even think I've told you about, Mom, is at my father's house, the church that you went to. I was often in, I guess, Sunday school classes, but with kids that were older than me. I was like the youngest usually, because I was like the one girl, but like I was old enough. It was really weird.
But those are like good situations to be in.
Yeah, I was the youngest. I learned a lot. Like I was super young, and there was
stretched versus you being the oldest, and you're just like.
And it was Marcus teaching those classes, and he held me to a higher standard, which helped me grow in a lot of ways. But there was one random Sunday where we were in Sunday school, and he was just like, next time that you wake up at like 2, 3 in the morning, and there was no alarm, there was no purpose to it. Wake up, get up, go get your Bible, whatever speaks to you, and read it, and take time to do a devotional. And I was like,
even though you might get in trouble by your parents.
Right, yeah. And y'all, that only happened one time in that season of being in those Sunday schools. It might have happened since then, but in this period.
How old were you? Like around?
I was in 5th grade. I know exactly why I was 5th grade, because the one time that it did happen was the morning of Dad and Jamie's wedding.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? That's the only reason I remember it, because I
know that.
Exactly. I woke up at like 3. It was literally like 3 a.m., just like Marcus said. And I was like, oh my God.
Look, it's God calling.
And I was, so 5th grade, I had just turned 10, because their anniversaries, It was the morning of my dad and stepmom's wedding. and the blending of another family.
Wow.
And so this was before middle school, but that was a moment where I read the Bible, and it was just very encouraging, just because I don't remember what verse I read or what that led me to, but the idea that God was with me and urged me to be in His Word that day of all days. And I love that family so much. We've definitely had our hardships with blended families and connecting with each other and growing together. We've had some rough,
but
patches.
Isn't God good?
Right, and He
how
knew,
amazing that is.
And He woke me up to, again, I don't remember what verse it was, but He called me to be with Him in that morning moment before that day occurred, which is so cool. And then another moment I can think of is the youth group that I was in was so life-changing to my experience. And in high school, I wasn't there yet where relationship with God was my top priority. Like, I would, if my job called me in at work on Sunday, I would skip church to go get paid, essentially. So I wasn't there yet, but we went to a mission trip in Portland my freshman year, or summer after my freshman year of high school. First ever mission trip. It wasn't like a different country or anything crazy. It was just Portland. It was just a road trip. But those 9 days is where I discovered my heart of serving, because it was a whole trip, like, and it was very ingrained in us by our youth pastor to, yes, we're going on a trip, and yes, we're with our friends, but they're like, this is a moment to put yourself last and to serve the people that need it in Portland. It was a moment to, even though we won't understand the circumstances that we're serving, to sit and yearn to understand. So we served in different food banks. We served at schools. There was one night where we packed sandwiches and we went down the streets and handed out sandwiches and drinks. And it was one of the most fulfilling trips that I've ever experienced. Like, I came back in tears because I was just like, the joy that it gave me to get outside of myself and high school and boys and just all the things, and just serve these men and women who need it, and the connecting with them and learning their stories. So that was a big part that eventually led to my relationship now and wanting to serve currently. But youth group was youth group. Such a good time.
I think, and I don't, yes, youth group, but I think that age is a really critical piece to that. And so whether you grew up in the church or not, or however, whatever you're exposed to in those periods of time, so let's say end of elementary, middle school, really does lay the foundation of your values, perspectives.
Those are hard years too.
They're really hard years, but you're also super impressionable. And so
severely,
it's really important, whatever that might be, for kids to be exposed to something that implants some sort of value or belief in something. And I only say that because I know so many different times in life that have been really, really hard. I think to myself, I don't know how people go through things like this without the thought and faith in knowing that there's something bigger.
Yeah, we have our faith, but just, I had one class in my college currently where it's 2 classes where you talk about themes and biblical themes, and it's just different worldviews. There's one semester that's just worldviews. And there's like the nihilism and a couple of worldviews where there's nothing to aspire to. There's nothing to go to. There's nothing to hope for. And then I'm just like, that is such a depressing life. Of course, we look to God, and that's something that we would want everyone to feel and experience, but to not have anything to hold on to, to hope for, to feel like I'm in the struggle and there's another side to it, that's like, it makes me feel heavy thinking about if I didn't have anything to hold on to, any sort of thing like that. And that's, you again, like you said, you learned that and have an idea of what that looks like for you at an earlier age, like during the middle school period.
I will say this though, thinking about, again, age, like I said, when we were in, my first exposure to youth group was because we just needed something to do. And my mom was like, please go, like, just go and do something. But what's interesting is then over the course of probably 2-3 years, inviting my mom to come to church. And my mom being in a place where she didn't grow up in the church whatsoever. But then she also had my dad's theology and religion that she had lived in and through. And almost, and I, we would love to hear her story, like
Oh
directly
my
from
gosh,
her.
yeah.
But almost feeling like this isn't it,
Yeah.
but Jesus,
Yeah.
like Christ, that's not it. Like what, what is it? So
Yeah.
much later in life, her having to experience for herself and make a decision on her own to
Yeah.
say, this is kind of what I want to do. And that influencing me as well, of her growing in her faith, especially me transitioning from high school into college, where I just feel like college, I didn't fall into a good group of people in college or college age that were
Yeah.
believers.
Yeah.
In high school, I did, because I was a part of
Yeah.
whatever the club for Christian athletes, and like I was like in some of those groups. But then when I went to college, it was like, all right, now you're on your own in your faith,
Yeah.
and you're super impressionable. So God definitely took a pretty big back seat to the college life. And as I'm talking, I'm like, I didn't party, I didn't go to parties, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything in college. It was post college. Like in my 30s, I kind of like, ugh. But even though I didn't do those things, I also had put God kind of to the side as well in my day to day.
It's so interesting how community is so important, and I didn't realize that truly, I don't think, until college. Because in high school, the youth group that I went to in middle school, it's middle school and high school, and so I had that youth group for most of high school, and then the last year of high school, I switched dramatically to a different youth group for a majority of reasons. But the community that I've had in college, shout out City Heart Church and all of the girls and everybody that I have met through that church, community makes such a difference in your relationship and how you go about that relationship. Because when I got to college, it was the same thing. I was just like, I'm on my own, so now it's fully my decision on whether I go to church or how much I invest in that time. And so taking the time, I'm so grateful that the first church I went to for a couple of weeks just because it was easy and checking off my list. And now I've gone to church, and now my responsibility's over. And so I went to my 5th church, and Pastor Andrea did an amazing service that humbled, like, she called me out, y'all. And I was like,
well, yep. Malia, I remember you called me. You were like, Mom, I just went to this new church, and it was a Black woman who preached.
Oh.
And that you just felt so at home. And it was such a good connection and reminder of the church you came from here in Denver.
Yeah.
And I was just so happy, because that was my prayer, that you would find a home and find your people in Jackson.
And that it was more than just, again, the checklist. Because I found there's so many churches in Jackson. And they were all fine. They all had worship. But I was just like, no, like, wait, I need to not necessarily look exactly like the churches that I had here. But I'm just like, it needed to call me to more. Like, I was just like, if I'm going to work from a relationship, I need to be challenged. Not just because there was like one service I went to where they said things like, God loves you and all that kind of stuff, which is all true. But then I was just like, I'm not growing or learning necessarily. So then coming to City Heart Church, and not constantly called out, but just like
challenged.
Every week I'm challenged, because either the sermon is challenging, or they very much advocate for you to be in a small group in a smaller community of people for like Bible study. They challenge you. Every week they're like, if you've already been sitting here 2 weeks, it's time to volunteer. It's time to give back. Like, they're very intentional. And so in college, I've been so grateful to learn from that community. I got rebaptized in college, which was so cool, and meant so much to me. But it taught me how important it is to, whether Bible study, whether it's church, whether it's just your friend group, to have communities of believers. And that's such an integral part of faith, I think, and just your relationship with God, and having people to challenge and support you, and help guide you through life and growing in Christ. Because you can't do it alone. The Bible doesn't call us to do it alone either. And so the seasons where I've had communities that aren't as many believers, or it's just not as like high school was, I had my youth group, but it wasn't my top priority, and the community was not top priority. And so I wasn't able to grow as much in high school. It was almost flip of what was yours. With high school, you had that community, and then college, you kind of lost. Yeah, it was on the back burner, like you said.
Yeah. What is your definition of faith?
Oh gosh.
I mean, no, we know what the Bible says.
Yeah. First thing that comes to my head, which is just like feels like a Google definition at this point, but it's just like believing in things that you can't see. But for me personally, I'm forgetting what podcast we talk about this in, but I am a planner. I love planning. I love organizing. I love colors. I love spreadsheets. I joked to you the other day that I was like, if someone asked me to organize their life, I would do it without pay. Like, it gives me such a sense.
Organize my life.
Okay. I'll make you spreadsheets. um, but yeah, I love doing it. It's something that gives me a lot of peace. And so for me, when I think of faith, this has been like in the last 6 months as transitioning out of college. My definition of faith is being able to give something that I want into God's hands. I want to plan my life out. I want to plan out what job I have and who I'm dating and where I live, and everything's just going to work out fine. It's going to happen how I want to do it. And so for me, I think the biggest challenge to my whole relationship, and so that's why I define faith as, is truly giving it all to God. Truly, not just saying I'm going to give it all to God or giving Him a part of it. Truly being able to look, God, like I believe in you. I know that you love me, and so therefore I'm going to give my life, give my plan, give my planners, my to-do list, give it to you. So that's a constant definition of faith for me, but then it also challenge.
Right.
To constantly, intentionally stop planning and be like, well, you're doing it again. Let me just stop. Let me stop worrying about it, because college, that was a big thing, is I was so worried about which college I was going to get into. I was so worried about the money. And the constant thing that you would tell me is just like, Leah, God's got it. And I'd be like, okay, but then I couldn't truly like internalize that and feel it and believe it. And so that's my definition of faith, is giving Him that trust and acknowledging Him as the ultimate planner and my peace, as I am wearing on my shirt. Because that's what planning gives me. Planning gives me peace. It makes me happy. But God is my source of peace.
Right.
And so being able to have faith in Him and faith in His ultimate plan for me.
What's so crazy is like I can easily, and I still can do this, tell you God's got it.
Yeah.
And have so much faith in God working in your life, but not as much faith in God working in mine.
It's interesting because that, I feel like, is a common thread, not necessarily you and me, but like mother-daughter wise, of being able to believe this, about me, have faith in me about this, trust for me in this, but then it's a whole
confidence in you, confidence in your life, confidence in how God will work it out,
confidence in the loss, and that it's okay to process the grief a certain way, but then it's a different narrative when it comes to your own faith and grief.
And I think that, I mean,
etc.
Thinking about the book and like the whole notion of through her eyes and different perspectives, right? The notion of hindsight is 2020 is so true. Not just hindsight. When I look back on my life, I could see where God worked. I could see where I had faith or didn't have faith. I could see God's provision, the blessings, everything that I've, have now, I prayed for then.
Yeah.
In it, we can't see it as well.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with you, anyone really. It's like, I can't get out of my body, out of my head, and look at myself and my life and be like, okay, this is what's happening. God has this, blah, blah, I'm in it.
Yeah.
But because I can look at your life, and a lot of times with what you're going through, I've gone through.
Yeah.
So I could totally be like, oh my gosh, God's going to totally get you where you need to go. God is totally there for you.
Yeah. And just, again, the longer you learn, because I write in a journal. I've been doing really consistently journaling since I started college. And so I can go back and look at different seasons of entries and just be like, oh my gosh. Like I thought my life was over. The younger me would be like, my life is crying. Seasons of, we talked about this in the love podcast, of there was a couple entries like sophomore year of college where I was just like, this boy doesn't want me back. Like, and that was months before I got into my most recent relationship. Like you just never, March has been a continuous theme of just like, this past 3 years of college, it seems like every time I get to that month, it's just like a whirlwind of rain and tears. And
then April comes.
And then April comes and there's flowers. But then I look back at these entries in the past years and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still alive. Like it's just, and as a writer, it's such a testament to me
Yeah.
and to see God's plan work out in writing. Like I've proven myself because I wrote in this interview that I'm so sad I'm not going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to go back to college. Now being like, I'm about to graduate college at the same place where I thought it wasn't going to be the place for me.
I think that's a critical piece in the power of writing things down.
Yeah.
I love the thought of journaling. And I love journals. Like I love paper. I love feeling it. I love
notebooks.
Beautiful colors, covers, notebooks.
Yeah.
I have so many of them. But the journaling itself is a struggle for me. It's a struggle to be consistent. So I don't journal in that notion of like writing down my thoughts and feelings as much. But what I do is I will write down the downloads that God gives me. So when the Holy Spirit speaks to me, when God speaks to me, which really is any time I give him the time of day to be quiet, to literally quiet my mind, to pause, to stop moving, to stop doing, God speaks to me. And so writing that stuff down has been incredible, putting the date next to it, because then I can look back. The date is so important, to go back and be like, wow, on this date, exactly a year ago, or 2 years ago, or like 2 months ago, I was going through this, or I have so many instances where I'm like, Lord, I need a miracle. Like no one, nothing I do, anyone else can do, can get me through this or can allow this to happen that I need. I need this so bad. And God is like, watch me work. And then I'm like, well, Lord, can you work faster?
Hold like my wine.
Can you like the planning thing, can you tell me how you're going to do it and when, and just give me approximate timeline and kind of update me along the way? And it's just like, crickets. It's nothing until literally late in the midnight hour, literally at the very last minute, God shows up, and and he shows up in that way. I feel, at least in my life, at the last minute, when all else has failed and everything is crumbling and it's not going to work out and there's no way this can happen, so that there's no denying that it was God that did it. Because of the way he shows up and when he shows up, I can't say, oh, this was because I, Olivia, did X, Y, and Z. This is because you, this is because this entity, this business, this person, the IRS, the realtor, like I can't say anything.
No, because this whatever should not have happened. Should not have
because it was definitely truly God. I think in my definition of faith, there's a flip of this, that once I really grasped this, it was kind of mind blowing, and I have to remind myself of this all the time. The amount of confidence and knowledge that we have that things can go wrong, we should have the same confidence and knowledge that things could go right. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when we think about something and it's just like, oh, this isn't going to happen, I'm not going to like find the right guy, I'm not this, like when we have these things, and I'm going to graduate, I'm not going to get the right job, or I'm not going to, we are so convinced of those things that don't exist, that we can't see. Faith is the same thing. It's just on the opposite. Why can't I be so convinced that actually this is going to happen, this is going to turn out great, and I am believing in something I can't see? I'm really good at believing in things I can't see.
Master.
On the wrong side.
That's such a good way to describe it. And then I'm sure we brought some other podcasts, but just the whole notion of back to the planning thing, and when God's timing versus our timing is, if he revealed every single thing that's going to happen from now forward, then we would have no reason to trust on him, to rely on him, to depend on him. The whole point is, since we don't know, so that we can trust him, so that I can put down my plan and my planner and trust him instead of trying to figure everything out. Be like, no, trust me, rely on me, because I have you in my plan. And when he fulfills our prayers, finally our miracles, it's always how we need it versus how we want it. It's almost never how I planned college. I was talking to my friend about this the other day. The way I thought college was going to go, almost everything I thought was going to happen didn't happen. Almost everything. There's maybe one thing that like went the way it was supposed to. But college, I wrote in my journal the other day, it was exactly it was not what it wasn't what I
Reverse,
thought.
reverse.
It was nothing like how I thought it was going to be, but it was everything that I needed
Mm-hmm.
for my growth, for the experiences I have, for where I'm going next, for what God wanted me to learn and grow in. And it's honestly such a fulfilling and um, peaceful thought that, not to say that what I had planned for it was going to be bad, but that instead of what I'd hoped and dreamed and thought college was going to be the best 4 years and all the, I wrote to my friend the other day, I was like, I thought I was going to get one of my favorite parties. I still don't like parties. Now I'm 4 years later.
I think there's a difference between a fear of parties and not liking parties.
Both.
Totally different.
It causes me anxiety, and I would just rather stay home and have prosecco with you.
Parties aren't like the best thing.
Ugh. But it was
anyway.
College was exactly what I needed it to be, and I don't take back any moment of college because of the way God planned it versus the way I thought it was gonna go. So
what's so crazy is you being such a planner. I used to be such a planner too. I feel like I've relinquished that, and I feel like as a mom, as a parent, you start to just throw some stuff away. Like, I'm just not even going to try to like manage this anymore because it's too stressful. It's like pick your battles or whatever.
Yeah.
But what's so crazy about Malia being a planner is that Malia was like late and early to enter into this world. Late and early. Like, how do you do that?
But I do it
late and early, and I was such the planner, and so I knew, and I have a journal that like writes out, all right, my due date is here. This is about here according to what to expect when you're expecting book. This should be happening. Then this should happen.
Is that the journal that have all the name options in there?
Yes, very, very planned out. And so Malia was due in February.
That's crazy because I can't imagine being a February baby. I'm a January baby.
She was due in February.
That's probably why I held off, because I was like, I don't want to be born in February.
But again, you were late and early. Due in February, born in January, but I went into labor on Thanksgiving in November on a plane. And so it's just like, and Malia was like, because I was excited to get here. And it's like, no, this is against the plan. Like, I was so upset. But then what happened is, being on bed rest for like a month and a half, I had to get to 36 weeks for things to be better and safer and you to be more developed and things like that. But I went into labor at 30. And so I was in the hospital on all kinds of medications, then on bed rest, back into the hospital. I think I went to the hospital probably like 6 different times to get to this 36-week mark. Then 36 weeks come, and I'm having contractions. I'm dilated. I think I literally did a presentation at work once I got off bed rest. 36 weeks. Okay, the baby can come now. I'm 36 weeks pregnant. I go back to work and get up in front of the whole agency and give a presentation on what I did with how bed rest was going. And it was a really good, it was like one of my better presentations. People were laughing. And then like 10 years later, the people kept talking about, remember that time? Yes, I remember that time. And I was 8 centimeters dilated. 8.
Oh my gosh.
8. And what you're supposed to get to 10, 9 or 10?
Yeah.
I was 8, standing up there. I was about to be like, with my hoo-ha, with Malia, like, okay, so anyway, you can come now. And then she decides,
no,
that's okay.
I'm good.
I'm not going to come. I'm just going to chill. And I literally.
Now that I've been dramatic,
I was in tears, and I was like, God, this is not how this was supposed to go. And every day would come. When is she coming? Is it today? Is it tonight? Is it tomorrow? Like, God, I just want to know. And I'm in pain, and I am like, it was torment. It was torment. And to the point where I recorded a message on my phone. And I was just like, hi, you've reached Olivia. Nope, I haven't had the baby yet. Trust me. Like, I was pissed because now people are calling me every other minute.
Were you at 36 weeks or 40 weeks? Has it been 40 weeks and I've...
No, that's what I'm saying. You were still early. So you came at 37, almost 38.
But at 36 is when I was like, when you were like, okay, and I was like...
I was actually okay at 34. 34. They had taken steroids to make sure your lungs were okay. 35, like, okay, just come. Because every time I went into the hospital, I was dilated, and they were like, all right, your baby's coming. Okay. 35. Okay. go into the hospital. All right, your baby's coming. Then the contractions would stop.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to like just take you early. So then, okay, go back home. Like how many times I went back and forth from home. And then how many times I was like to Grandma Jane and my mom, she's coming, come on to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And
Y'all were
then
all sick of me.
I was so sick of you. But I was sick of God. Like, what the
Yeah.
heck?